你们可以听到吗？
师父听到。
OK, thank you.
好。
And you can see clearly. See clearly. You see here. See clearly. Okay.
弥陀佛，师父早。
早。Okay, it's 9 o'clock now.
阿弥陀佛。
Mm.
Shall we start now?
Yeah. I think we can start.
Thank you. A very pleasant good morning to Venerable Weiwu, Venerables, brothers, Sisters, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. All of you are warmly welcome to this online course on Buddhist Total Quality Management by Venerable Wei Wu. This course is available in both Chinese and English on Saturday and Sunday respectively. Each class lasts around 1 hour, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and the completion period is 14 weeks. Hopefully, everyone can choose between taking the Chinese or English courses or both, depending on your interests. Before we begin, everyone, please turn on your videos, put your hands together, and let us bow to welcome Venerable Wei Wu so that he may start today's class.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to start this course for 14 weeks. Yesterday in the Chinese session, I mentioned that this course actually was at the request of the Pahang Buddhist Association members when I visited them at Kuantan many years ago. In fact, I had wanted to conduct a course there, but COVID came, and then I had an idea that we could have the class through Zoom. So earlier this year, I had also communicated with the members there that I will do it this year. So it's the end of 2022 now, but there is a saying that it's better late than never. So I'm going to try to cover this in 14 weeks. And the topic that we will be sharing is on Buddhist Total Quality Management. So before we start, let's together pay homage to the gem. Maybe for the first time you repeat after me. We just take refuges in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Thank you. Okay, this set of notes that I'm sharing originated from a time before my ordination when I was active in promoting TQM. Generally with a lot of friends in the multinational companies in Penang. We had a quality and reliability society, and I invited one Japanese professor, Professor Noriaki Kano, who is a student of Professor Ishikawa. I first learned about him through a colleague when I was working in Hewlett Packard. There was a colleague, he was an engineer in Hewlett Packard, Singapore, who attended a course in Japan and brought back a whole set of notes, and I was quite attracted to the ideas outlined in those. And soon I had an opportunity and get acquainted with my professor friend, Dr. Kano, Professor Kano. So he came to Malaysia almost every year at the invitation of Hewlett Packard, and we also take the opportunity to organize public seminars for him to share his vast and profound knowledge on total quality management with us. So after a while, I was quite familiar with the topic that he was teaching. In fact, I have to say at the upfront that many of the teaching slides that I'm using originated from the set of slides he used then. Of course, I've added the Buddhist element to the materials. So I remember for 2 years, I think, we not only organized a seminar in Penang, but also in Kuala Lumpur. So we have a 2-day seminar. First day in Penang, Professor Kano conduct that session, and then I use many examples in Malaysian context to do the second day seminar, while he then moved on to Kuala Lumpur to do his first day, and then I will join him second day in KL. So let's consider what is a TQM, and what do we mean by Buddhist TQM? By Buddhist TQM, we mean a TQM with a strong Buddhist flavor. So a good example is this particular slides that I'm sharing. So in answering what is TQM, Professor Kano describes the following concepts. The first I put as people-oriented. Was not the term he used, but he emphasized on TQM being a scientific, being a very, very logical idea, if you put it. But when he shared the idea, his knowledge on TQM, certainly we can see the people-oriented aspect. One aspect I will share with you afterwards. So I put that as number one, that Buddhist TQM should be very human-oriented. In Chinese, 人性化. Secondly, it is a very systematic approach to management. And it is an activity not only for quality, not quality management in a narrow sense, but it is an activity which covers the entire organization. So described as an organization-wide activities. And the focus being having product or services devoted to customers. So customer is the core. Everything that is done in the context of total quality management should never forget that the core is the customer or the user. The objectives of TQM is the achievement of product and service quality. So in the case of a manufacturer, they have a product, they offer a product. But in the case of service-oriented organization like an airline or a bank or government service or NGO, religious organization, we are providing service and our customer is the public, to serve the public. So in this respect, it's quite interesting that the founder of Matsushita Company, the grand old man, Konosuke Matsushita, had a very interesting philosophy about his company. He emphasized in a very early period of Matsushita that the company's purpose, main objective is not to make a profit. In most companies, especially American companies and Western companies, profit is the main objective. So when they get impatient, they will always say, don't waste time, tell me what is the bottom line. And by that they mean that when you look at an annual report of a company, you go to the profit and loss, P&L page. So at the bottom of that page, then you can see whether the company is making profit or not, or how much profit it was making for that year. But Matsushita, Konosuke Matsushita, say that the objective of his company is to serve the society, serving the society. This is rather interesting. From the Buddhist point of view, he himself is certainly a very good Buddhist. He belonged to the Jodoshin's school of Japanese Buddhism. So this great man who was very successful is also a great philosopher. So we may say that in terms of the Buddhist teaching of cause and effect, he is emphasizing on the cause, that if you serve the society well, the profit that you make is an outcome. So serving the society, serving the needs of the customer is emphasized in this management philosophy. So besides product and service quality, other objectives of TQM include originally in these slides is cost management. So I have rephrased this as a resource management, specifically in the area of reducing waste. Because we live in a world where in the past 100 to 200 years, we have overtaxed limited resources and had done a lot of harm to the environment. If we continue like that, this globe that we stay in will not be will not be fit for human. Maybe at that time only cockroaches can survive. So nowadays we can feel the results, the outcomes of this destruction of nature and the environment. So we are faced with a global warming and all the change of weather, floods. It's happening every day. Okay, the other aspect is if you have a product, then is to increase the sales of the product. So this is the quantitative aspect. Similarly, if you are a service-oriented organization, then you talk about service expansion, enhancement of efficiency, or productivity, and shortening of waiting time. In the case of a product, the time it takes to deliver the product. In the case of a service oriented organization, you go to a bank, sometimes you have to wait a long time. And a well-managed bank will look into that aspect quite seriously. So we talk about totality. So TQM, as earlier mentioned, is not only quality management, but covers the entire activities of a company or an organization. But we must never forget that the core is the quality. Quality in the sense of serving the customer, which we will come to later on. And then the other aspects are the periphery. So this look like what? If you're American, or if you have worked with an American company, you go to America, American like donuts. So I'll share with you a story. When my professor teacher was invited to a multinational company in America, and that morning, the top management team gave a presentation of the total quality management initiative. And then it was time for morning tea, or morning coffee, because Americans drink coffee more than tea. So of course, you always find a donut. So the Professor Kano, he took a donut, and then he said, "This morning I see a donut phenomena in your company." He said that you, in your sharing, you talk a lot about many activities, but almost all of them are focused internally, focused on what you consider important for the company, and I smell very little of the customer. So you say that, it's empty in the core, like a donut. Then one of the manager responded and said, "Oh, Professor, I like your analogy, Then he said, "Oh, when we drink a coffee, we add cream and sugar. So it's like drinking a coffee without adding cream and sugar." The professor said to him, No. It's not drinking a coffee without cream and sugar, but drinking coffee without coffee." So you you get this idea. This was a story he shared with us when he was conducting the seminar. Okay. So in terms of promotion of TQM, if you apply in a Buddhist organization, for myself, when I started working, I worked in Hewlett Packard. This company is very human-oriented company. I learned a lot of things when I started working with the company. I can remember one of the key managers who was in charge in the Hewlett Packard operation of Southeast Asia. And when he came to the Hewlett Packard factory in Penang, he would share with us. He said that we should always take care of our employee. They are our greatest assets. And then when you as a manager, when you have to make decisions, some decisions are easily made because it's black and white. But when you come to gray area, that you have to decide, whether to do something for the employee or not to do so. He said we should always put ourselves in the employee's shoe. The reason he gave was a very logical one. He says because to the employee it means a lot, but to the company it means very little. So I remember this quite vividly. His name is Dick Love. So he is really a very lovable person. Okay, now let's talk about some of the pillars for the promotion of Buddhist TQM. So if an organization, if a Buddhist organization is interested to apply the concepts, for example, in my own case, I started to work, and then I learned a lot of management concepts. And then I felt that Buddhist temples and Buddhist organizations are very weak in their management. But the Buddha's teaching has a lot of things that could be very useful for us when we work as a manager in this company. Of course, ours is a multi-religious and multi-racial society. So when I started to apply some of the Buddhist concept, of course, I did it quietly. And then I started to ask myself whether some of the good management ideas could apply to Buddhist organizations and temple. And so I started to apply what I learned. Because when I was working in Hewlett Packard, I was already active in sharing a Dharma. So being involved in the TQM promotion, firstly in Hewlett Packard, and subsequently helping many other multinational companies as well as some government agencies, I decided to try this in Tan Siang itself, and found that it certainly helped. It works both ways. So when we talk about the pillars for the promotion of TQM, firstly is the intrinsic technology or the intrinsic knowledge. So if you are talking about running a Buddhist organization, it should have the flavor of the Dharma, the Buddha's teaching. Otherwise, don't call it a Buddhist. And in whatever organization you are in, the intrinsic technology, you must have that knowledge, have that technology well. Say for example, yesterday I shared this. Tan Siang is a service oriented NGO, religious NGO, and we offer different types of services. We run pay as you wish canteen where people come for a meal and they pay whatever donation they wish. So when we run a canteen, obviously we have to cook good food, healthy food. In our case, we cook vegan food. So if your cook has no skill in cooking, then you cannot operate a canteen successfully. So this is what we mean. Then, secondly, this is the Buddhist element. In the original teaching transparency or slides of the professor, he has motivation. He has motivation, but I divide it into two aspects. Before talking about the motivating forces, I talk about the motive. The motive. So earlier I shared with you Matsushita's story. Konosuke, the wise old man, said that it was to serve the society. So, in Buddhism, we certainly emphasize a lot that whatever we do, the motive is very important. So ultimately, whatever we do, what will they lead us to? For the Buddhists, the highest goal is perfect enlightenment of a Buddha. So if you want to attain perfect enlightenment, if you want to become a Buddha, then we have to help sentient beings. So we have to do things to benefit the sentient beings. So having the goal of Buddhahood and the idea that we practice the Bodhisattva path to benefit all sentient beings, that motive we call bodhicitta. So if we use a bodhicitta as a motive, that is the highest. Okay, then in terms of motivating forces, my teacher, my TQM teacher, that time he was coming to Southeast Asia, and he made an observation that when the so-called the four dragons, after Japan became very successful, then Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore became very successful also, and collective were known as the four dragons. And then when he came to Malaysia, he said that unfortunately Malaysia is not one of them. Then he mentioned something that for a company to be successful in TQM, for a country to be very successful, there are two aspects that he shared. One is a crisis consciousness. So he said that in that aspect, the these are four dragons had crisis consciousness. Their crisis consciousness was very high. They had to survive in very, very tough environment. But maybe Malaysia, being more lucky, being quite quite rich in natural resources, very strong crisis consciousness. And I may say that in this regard, if you look into religious sphere, Buddhists in general likes crisis consciousness. I would say compared with a Christian denomination like the Catholic religion. The Catholic Church had lost a lot of following from the time when Catholics were very influential. Many people started to get more highly educated and no longer accepted the Christian teaching of that you believe in God, you accept God, you will be saved. That type of teaching is not appealing to many Westerners. So actually, many Westerners, although they celebrate the Christmas, Christmas is next Sunday. Only last weekend I went to attend a Christmas celebration in Esplanade. But certainly with the Catholic Church, they were losing followings, and then they moved the resources to Asia. So they certainly have a greater crisis consciousness compared with Buddhist. I would share with you another aspect. Thailand is considered as a Buddhist country, but today Buddhism in Thailand is really in crisis. And many things are happening, but most Buddhists in Thailand still think that Buddhism is the main religious faith. And I think this is a very big problem. Another aspect which I mentioned yesterday has to do with our weakness in the ability to attract young people. If we don't have young people to come into Buddhist organizations, we have no future. Compared with other religions, we are also very far behind. We have lofty ideas. During the COVID period, most of the Buddhist organizations and Buddhist temples took a decision to close down. And although we have teachings about Bodhisattva ideal, compared with in Malaysia, compared with Islamic religion and Christianity, you will be surprised that the Islamic NGOs were all over helping the victims of COVID. This one of our members, Ming Yi, shared with me A few months ago, there was a flood in Baling. It's in a village between Baling and Kupang. And I remember these two places very well because between myself and Brother Leong Kok Heng, we would go there every weekend. There are two Buddhist associations, one in Baling, one in Kupang. And then one of us will go to Baling 1 week, and then the following week we'll go to Kupang. So we rotate. So being very familiar with that place, I was interested to go and see the flood there. And so Min took me and also when Chen Lu and Gek En, 4 of us, we went there. And when we went there, you could see that the Islamic NGOs were already there. There were already a lot of items piling up, donated by these well-wishers, generous donors through this Islamic NGO. I was quite surprised. At first, I thought that the Christian churches are more active, but not so. So, crisis consciousness. And then besides crisis consciousness, this is external forces that push. There is an internal pulling forces. Is the leadership of the top management, or the leadership of a country to steer the entire country or organization towards a common direction. This is also very important. Okay, let's move on. For the promotion of a Buddhist TQM, we must have a strong grasp of some basic concepts that I share some of them. One which earlier I mentioned about being human-oriented. You can see this in terms of Japan. When Japan became the loser, or Japan lost the Second World War. And my professor, teacher, he actually shared with us that when he was a small boy, they were struggling because Japan has very limited land. They only have a lot of people, cheap labor. And in order to import food, they need to produce things that they could sell in exchange of food. So the American send their specialists in quality management to help, because Japanese products at that time had a very bad quality image. I remember when we were small, people used to joke about Toyota cars being made of Milo can, but nobody has that idea about Toyota company anymore. So these American teachers went there, the gurus in quality management, to share the American way of quality control, quality management. If you look at the Industrial Revolution, if you look at a company in Japan, in America that started a mass production, one good example is Henry Ford. Henry Ford started the Ford company and started to produce cars for America. And when they have mass production, there is a new branch of discipline called industrial engineering, IE. So in industrial engineering, the theory behind it is that you have workers, and the workers must be closely supervised. This has to do with the idea that if they are not closely supervised, they will be up to something. They are lazy. They won't do their job, so they must be closely supervised. So when bad products are produced, they had the idea that it's the workers' problem. So this type of teaching, when introduced to Japan, the Japanese certainly had been influenced by the Asian religion and philosophies. Japan is very strongly Confucianist and also strongly influenced by Buddhism and Shintoism. So in Confucianist teaching, there is a concept that human is by nature good. 人之初，性本善。So when the Japanese digested what the American teachers had to offer, they have to come out with their own version of quality management that fits into their own society. So in their TQM, which is different from the American model, they talk about the goodness of human nature. So the idea here is that it's not that the workers are unnaturally lazy and bad. It is a condition they work under. So if you create a very good working conditions for them, they want to excel, they want to be good, to contribute to the company if they feel a sense of ownership of that company. Of course, later on, there is another discipline in the West called industrial psychology. And in industrial psychology, there is a concept of the goodness of human nature. Sometimes this is described as a theory X. The theory X is the stand taken by early industrial engineering. Actually, maybe you can find that in the Judeo-Christian tradition, in the original sin, the teaching of the original sin. And then these industrial psychologists talk about theory Y, where they look at the goodness of human nature and advocated that that an organization should look at this from the positive point of view. So in TQM, certainly we emphasize on the goodness of human nature. And closely related with it was the ideas brought to Japan by the American gurus. They said that actually they have found in America that it's not the fault of the workers. They attributed 80% of the problem of a company to be created by management. So management should take ownership of 80% of the problem and not blame this on the workers. Someone like Deming even say 90%, but whatever, 80 or 90%, I think you get the idea. So if you don't train if you don't create a good environment, if you don't train the workers well, this is a management problem, not a workers' attitude problem. Okay, we are going to talk about the two types of management. We're going to talk about daily management and also breakthrough management later on. But in terms of having a good daily management system, there is an emphasis in TQM on attention to details. That whatever you do, you pay attention to the details. In Chinese, 用心做，细心做事。And also the concept that you do it right the first time. With good preparation, with good attention to detail, you want to do things right the first time. There are many other concepts which maybe I've not included here. In the course of the next 14 weeks, maybe when we come to that, I will mention them. Besides concept, there are certainly techniques for the promotion of TQM. In manufacturing-oriented organization, they talk about statistical analysis, way of solving problem based on facts and data. So statistics is very important. When I came back from New Zealand, I started when I was in New Zealand, I actually worked with an equivalent of TMB. At that time, just like a TMB was owned by the government, I worked for the New Zealand Electricity Department for 2 years as an assistant engineer. But when I came back, I started to work with multinational companies. So its main business is electronics. But soon, the first job I got was a quality QA engineer. And I like that job very much because I like statistics. From the time of high school, I have a strong liking for statistics. To many people, they hate it because it's very difficult to them. So in the case of Deming, he talked not in terms of quality control. He talked about statistical quality control. Everything must be based on facts and figures, analysis of a problem. So you have to be equipped. You have to equip your members with a problem-solving skills, and also the human interactions aspect are very, very important. So these are the pillars for the promotion of TQM. Intrinsic knowledge, motivating forces, concepts, techniques, and finally promotional vehicles. But promotional vehicles, I've shared some example in the next slide. Is to start TQM, you have to start with the foundation. You have to start with the base, what we call routine management or day-to-day management or daily management. So the key word of routine management is standardization. We'll talk more about that later on. So documentation, standardization. Many companies were involved in getting ISO certification, and the ISO certification emphasizes a lot on documentation, on having a good what I call daily management system. And then the different types of planning at the very top management level, at the middle management level, at the first level management, and down to the entire organization. And then there is a very interesting activities which is called the annual TQM audit. So when I was working in Hewlett Packard as the TQM manager, I will organize this for all the departments. So it's not only the manufacturing department or the maintenance or personnel department, even finance department have their own TQC activities. So every year, when we do the TQC audit of, let's say, the finance department, so we will have the general manager as the chairman of that audit team, and then an internal customer, another departmental or functional manager of that company, in that case, Hewlett Packard. And then I will be the third person in the audit team. So this is done at the very top management area. And as a consultant, our main job is to do this, to go to different organizations and perform these very what we call total quality management audit for the top management members of that organization. Okay, we have 1 more minute, but maybe this is a good time to stop. So for our next lesson, we will go into what is totality, what do we mean by quality, what is the definition of quality, and then what are the aspects, important aspects of management. It's 10 o'clock now, but before we end this session, I would like to just find out if we have many attendees who are also members of our English Dharma group at Tan Siang. Because I understand that next weekend we will have two Indian students, two PhD Indian students. They will be at Tan Siang to do Dharma sharing, and their Dharma sharing is from 9 o'clock. So if there are many participants here today that are in that group, we can do something about the second session. So can I get some quick response from the participants whether we will have our next session next Sunday as planned, or for the benefits of those who will not be able to attend, who would like to attend that Dharma sharing, we can do something about it. So can I get some quick response? Who are the members? Let me look at the list. I think maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay to continue. I do see some members who may be regular members of the English Dharma group. In any case, we are going to record all the sessions, and they will be available on YouTube. That if you happen to miss one session, you can always catch up. So if you have any questions, the way we can go about it is that you can leave your questions in the WhatsApp group that we have created. And please post your questions in that group, and I will try to answer your questions before we start the second session. So I now pass it back to our MC.
Thank you, Sifu. We now invite Sifu to lead us for the merit dedication.
Okay. So please put your palms together. Maybe next time I will prepare the verses. But just for today, you just follow me. May the merit gain from the Dharma sharing and the Dharma learning be shared with all sentient beings. Okay, thank you.
On behalf, I would like to express our deepest appreciation to Venerable Weiwu for teaching us and for allowing us to be the participants in today's class on Buddhist total quality management. I also want to send our sincere gratitude to everyone who gave up their free time to attend today's event. We will continue again next Sunday. Finally, everyone, please put your hands together and bow to Venerable Weiwu. Thank you.